What's up, everybody? This is the Nukes of Hazard podcast. It's going to be an awesome show. We have our friend Megan from Kiewit Nuclear, who is making sure everything that gets built around nuclear is completely safe. So we're going to hear what that life is like. And we got a couple of news items as usual. Uh, One of the downsides about this podcast is that you're stuck with us. Just me and
Yeah.
Mike. Our wives are off doing more important things. So we'll try to keep it interesting. Um, Mike, why don't you hit us with some of the news? What's going on up there?
Yeah, there's a couple interesting things that came up in the news. I will at least channel my wife. My wife can't make a decision like when she like needs shoes or whatever. Like you'll go in Nine West, she'll have like three pair in the cart and then not be able to decide, and Nine West will be like emailing her saying like, "Hey, do you still want to buy these?" So Sarah's so I'll talk trash on her behind her back about making a decision. So instead of having one news article, I did want to mention
Yeah.
a couple
Well,
things.
that's actually a technique that my kids use with the Amazon shopping cart. They
Oh.
throw stuff in there, and and I'll see it like it's a box of Pokemon cards. I'm like, who put the? Are we buying this? And Pearson will say, yeah, I'm just saving it there for later," kind of in the hopes that like we'll
Oh,
accidentally just buy it.
yeah.
It'll get swept up in the regular order.
See, that works with Amazon. I don't stumble upon Nine West
Yeah,
or Bowdoin. Is it Susanna?
yeah.
Don't have Susanna go to Bowdoin because
Yeah,
that's a
she's
conviction.
yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
uh,
She's not.
anyways, but
Yeah, that's not a website you go to every day. Yeah,
no, not often. But the first one I wanted to bring up is there was a German election in the last week, I believe, where the new um, prime minister, he is a center right party member, but he seems to be pro nuclear, and that
yeah,
is relevant. Obviously, it's good that a big friendly country is pro nuclear. The rest of the EU has always been very pro nuclear, especially France. France is all nuclear. I think pretty much all their electrical generation is from nuclear right now, and
yeah,
so the German Parliament or German Prime Minister becoming pro-nuclear would allow the EU a much easier course to be um, pro-nuclear. So
yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah. I agree. The first of all, Germany shut down all their reactors, and they shut down the last one maybe last September or a year ago, last September. Um, but the about face is pretty encouraging, and it's happening in Italy as well. Italy has zero nuclear power. Um, and they've had basically a referendum against it for over 10 years. I think 2012 was the last time they voted and said we're
Hey,
done with it.
can you use your Italy connections to have us go to Italy to speak on nuclear power? And
Oh,
I
I'm
know.
totally working on that. Yeah.
Explain why you have an Italy connection.
it's it's um it's just I do have connections. They're not like gangbusters, but I will tell you that I'm
Or
involved.
gangster connections.
Yeah, yeah, right. I'm involved in the Austin Florence partnership. So it's a city partnership between the city of Austin and the city of Florence. Um, and it's there's a lot of sister city connections out there in the world, but this one is and it has some backing from the city of Austin and the city of Florence to have mutually beneficial investment relationships. So I'm actually looking to find if there are folks in Italy who would like to learn from folks in the United States when it comes to nuclear construction um, and design, because something that Megan's going to talk about is you know sharing lessons learned, best practices, communicating, a safety culture. That is not something that just happens from scratch overnight. So there's been successful kind of stories of exchange trips and that sort of thing. So that's what I would like to get us on.
That'd be
And
yeah.
wouldn't
The
it be
reason
nice
I
to
found
sit
this
there in
out,
Florence and
so
yeah,
Sarah was at the International Diabetes Technology Conference. And I brought that up to you, and you said, "Oh yeah, technology, Florence. Yeah, that makes sense because Florence is the tech hub of Italy." And oh, by the way, that's our sister city. And oh, by the way, I'm in the Florence Austin partnership. And Sarah and I, of course, say, "Of course, Rob is. Of course, Rob would find his way into the Florence Austin technology,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
partnership." But
it's exciting.
no, it is really cool.
I
And
mean, they're starting with things outside of my purview, like they're doing some fashion and um, yeah, I think fashion. Oh, music, fashion, music.
oh,
That
of course, yeah, South by
yeah,
Southwest,
we'll get
yeah.
around to it.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
man. So anyway, Germany, but Germany's kind of like a leader. They're a bit of a leader in the
yeah,
EU. So,
yeah.
like to your point, if they're turning back on to nuclear, that's influential. I heard a stat. I don't know what the number is in Germany, but in England, their uh, power prices are 4x what ours are. So basically, if it costs $300 for electricity for your house for a month, it could be $1,200, 1,000 pounds, something like that. I mean, which means you're just not using it. You're turning stuff off. You're not running the AC. But that's for residents. But think about manufacturing.
Oh
So
yeah,
you just can't build stuff with that. And so I think people are seeing nuclear and cheaper energy prices as a way to have a competitive edge
oh yeah.
for manufacturing.
I think the UK, either they're done with coal like completely. It's like
Mm,
they're way ahead of us on getting rid of coal. And we all
yeah.
know in this country, coal keeps our electric prices low.
Yeah. Because
Um,
we got it here.
so
Yeah.
so that kind of marries with what you just said. So
Yeah.
pretty neat.
Yeah.
So that was my
It's
one
cool.
article that we talked on a little more than I thought we would. But then the other one that's relevant, especially to me, is that our U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright was at Los Alamos National Lab yesterday, and
Mm,
he put out that nuclear power is going to be very big going forward. And the headline from the AP was U.S. Energy Secretary touts nuclear power as tech sector's thirst for electricity grows. And the
mm.
article goes, and it says a lot of stuff you and I've already said on this podcast, that to win the AI race, we're going to need reliable, affordable electricity, and it's understood that we don't want it to have a carbon footprint. Like very positive nuclear power news coming from Los Alamos from the Secretary of Energy, and no kidding, in the morning he must have said this, or midday or whatever, that afternoon I get an email from Los Alamos National Lab saying that they want to be involved with my stuff,
Wow.
my nuclear career fairs for the rest of the year, because everybody in the nuclear safety administration, like that whole in the national labs, they were all kind of just holding their breath to see what the new administration, how they would
Yeah.
treat nuclear
Yeah.
power. So
Yeah.
like the NRC, naval reactor, nuclear reactors, naval reactors, like all these different companies, they were just waiting until the end of the first quarter to kind of like
Ooh,
decide.
they're starting to get some signals, some very strong. And so they
Yeah.
emailed you that afternoon. And so what does that mean for you? Like, where can you slot them in and what kind of people they want?
Um, well, they've always been a great hire of Navy nuclear trained officers, and I mean their lab is gigantic, and it's supposedly just an incredible place to live too, because the weather's great, and then the schools are amazing, and
Yeah.
your cost of living is low, and you get paid very well. So it's like, and this is like a little bit of an ad for Los Alamos National Laboratory, but like, yeah, so they'll be coming to my career fairs and the rest of the year, and I always tell the nukes that when they're transitioning, if you want to still serve the country with your brain, and
Yeah.
consider the national laboratories, Lawrence Livermore
Yeah.
National Laboratory, Oak Ridge,
Yeah.
Argonne, and Chicago, like they're all pretty cool places to work, and you're still helping keep people safe and helping protect the sovereignty of our country, but you're just not going to sea. Yeah.
My big question mark is how will the NRC be affected? Will they uh, hire more, or will they slim down? I don't really know. And this wasn't on your list of articles, but the NRC about a week ago said they're going to cut their rates in half for advanced reactors. So if you want to get a license for a brand new reactor design, typically you would have to pay somewhere between $250 and $300 an hour for a license review. And since there's so many new entrants, and they also want to encourage new designs, they've dropped that to like 125 an hour. That takes place later this year.
Wow.
So that's big.
I'd do it for $100 an hour.
Yeah, I've volunteered. Yeah, they haven't taken me up on it. Yeah.
Anyways, well, all righty.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably move on to our guest here. Well, we're pleased to introduce our guest today. Uh, Megan is a friend for a couple years. I met her while she was still in the Navy and a submarine officer working in Charleston, and she's been out working in the nuclear industry for the last couple years. And since this podcast is about nuclear energy, nuclear power, and all things that are happening in the world of nuclear energy, we're thrilled to have her. Thank you for joining us, Megan. We're lucky that we could find some of your time here. I know you're very, very busy. I just wanted to kind of start with your background, and just like I do when I meet a new naval officer, I say, can you tell me kind of from high school where you grew up and to where you are today and what you do in your current position?
Absolutely. Nice to meet you, Rob, and good to see you again.
Yeah.
Though it is
Thanks for joining.
Like Mike said, my name's Megan, and so I grew up originally in California, the South Bay area. I grew up there my whole life, and then I went to college at the Naval Academy, and I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2017. And like Mike said, I am a submarine officer. I guess once a submarine officer, you're always kind of a submarine officer at heart.
Kind of, yeah.
So I spent my time in Charleston at the prototype and at the power school before that. And then I went on, served on the USS Michigan. I also did a ride and actually got my fish on the Florida. And
Cool.
that was an awesome experience, getting to see how a different boat is run. So my boat was in the shipyard for a really long time. And while it was in the shipyard, got some really interesting evolutions under my belt, some really cool stuff that you don't normally get to see when you're on a plant that's underway. And so I was the QAO for a period of time on the Michigan, as well as the chemistry and radiological assistant. And as JOs transferred.
Those are the hard ones, everybody. Those
Yes.
are not the easy ones. Yeah.
Actually,
They're not the ones that Mike had.
I was a QAO. I was a
You
QAO.
were?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and as JOs went on and off the boat for different schools, we take the responsibilities when they're gone and then transfer them back with a turnover. And so I kind of got experience in a lot of the different engineering division officer roles. I was never the RCA though. I never got that honor. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was the RCA, and I was the commo. This is a boomer.
Yes.
But the RCA was an interesting job. I studied math at Cal Poly, and that's the only part of the submarine I had a knack for, the reactor controls area. If they put me in a CRA, I would have quit. CRA is like the chemistry monitor. So how much contaminants are going into the ocean, and measuring that to very, very like many decimal places, and having to attest to that and so on. So anyway, I'm sure that was excellent training for what you're doing now.
Right.
I'm thinking about you two both as division officers. All right, because you're talking about your jobs. Rob is 6'4". Rob.
I was, yeah.
Before gravity pulled you down a little bit, parenting, and and Megan, might you be 5'4"?
Just about underneath that, a little shorter than that.
So I'm hoping that Rob hit his head a lot more times than Megan did on the submarine.
I did.
So.
I'm sure we all did, but I did. It was almost daily. Yeah.
All right, go. Sorry, Megan, to interrupt you there.
That's okay. So after the boat, I did a tour as a ship engineer in Charleston, and that was a very rewarding tour. It was super challenging, but also really good to have that crew and rotate with that crew on shift work. And seeing the students graduate and become confident in their ability as operators was really rewarding. So I did a year as a shift eng on shift, and then I did a year working with the command staff basically. So there's a couple JOs that work directly for the triad, and they manage operational safety. There's also a staff training officer and a chemistry and radiological assistant, and so did a year as that, and that was also very interesting and led directly to what I did after I transitioned out. So I transitioned out in 2003 into what I do now. I work for Kiewit, and we'll get into what Kiewit is in a little bit. But Mike, you said that you were also the QAO when you were what was that like for you?
I was in dry dock too, so I don't know. I have a
What's
very
dry dock? Wait, what does dry dock mean?
So that's a great question, Rob. So every once in a while, you need to do repairs to a submarine that can't be done while it is still floating. So you need to drive it into a big kind of almost like an airplane hangar, and they put the boat literally up on wooden blocks and pump the water out, and then you're able to do things to the submarine while it's not submerged, and get up underneath it and do some things. But yeah, so I was QAO during our dry dock, which was really neat. But I have like eccentric ways to I look at life. I don't know why it is, but so one thing I always got annoyed was how QA packages got like hidden in the different shelves of different officers' inboxes. So when the papers were in review, I didn't use those big long manila folders. I went and I bought orange neon folders, like that were
so you could see the different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could see that they were in. So I could open up the door and the Eng still. But then the Eng would know that I put that because he could see it too, and everybody could see it. And
like, special colors for Mike. He's gonna do it his own way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just cost me like $5 at Staples, So, but yeah, no, it was very rewarding, and I used some of the lessons from that as far as just we could even talk about it later, Megan. Like SubSafe, talk about a great system. It saves lives. There's a reason people copycat it. But, anyways, back to Megan. Sorry.
Yeah. So catch us up on Kiewit. Like, how'd you find the role, and what do y'all do there?
Absolutely. So I'll start off by describing Kiewit because it's a large company. So it's one of America's largest construction and engineering organizations, and we operate through a multitude of subsidiaries, and those subsidiaries are spread out into areas such as power or mining or industrial, and we have been around since 1884, so a long history, very successful company to be around that long, and we are also employee owned, which I think is awesome. And yeah, that's incredible. You don't. That's unique. You don't necessarily hear about that very much. And so, to give you some of the scale, we operate in all around North America, in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and we have over 33,000 employees. So it's a large company. But one of the great things is that it is employee owned, like I said, and that gives a sense of ownership to the work that we do.
Yeah.
Kiewit actually came to one of my career fairs in Hawaii. So Kiewit has a large presence in Hawaii because of all the different construction projects going on there. And there are Navy veterans that want to stay in Hawaii that end up getting jobs at Kiewit in Hawaii. And they were looking for some project managers, and they came to our now defunct Hawaii career fair. So, yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. So,
okay. So, Megan, you're at Kiewit Nuclear Solutions, and you're an auditor.
Yes.
or a member of the Nuclear Solutions team. So correct me if I'm misspeaking there. So what does that division do?
So the subsidiary that I belong to is Kiewit Nuclear Solutions, and that's the division that's dedicated to nuclear construction and engineering. And so part of what I do, yes, I do audit, and we can get into details of what that means. And so because some of the listeners, when they hear audits, they might think of some of the audits that they have had on board. And so some of the principles are the same, but it looks a little bit different in the civilian nuclear power side. And so Kiewit Nuclear specializes in complex nuclear projects, and I primarily work in the U.S. on those. And so I joined that company because I wanted to continue in this industry. I think it's a really exciting time, and I'm very excited to be on the quality assurance team. So I took that quality assurance officer skills. It meant a lot to me when I did it on the boat, and I did a little quality also when I was in Charleston. And I'm really happy to be part of the Kiewit team and bring those skills over to Kiewit Nuclear.
So I'll give some quick background but in Charleston, the prototype that Megan mentioned is like a mini reactor plant. It's limited to, I can't remember the power, 7% or something small. You couldn't really get it past a certain percent, but it was a live reactor, and it just like spun the propeller and generated electricity. But so that reactor plant, and then the reactor on the Florida, and then what was the other boat that you were assigned to that was in dry dock?
I had orders to Michigan. I did the deployment on the Florida to
Michigan.
Right.
So you've seen, at least in the Navy, you saw 3 reactors, and then over Kiewit, I'm sure you've seen a whole lot more. But I want to, and we'll let Mike ask this question, but I'm really curious, I want to hear about how do we know these plants are safe? And I would imagine the audit and the QA process is kind of central to that.
Right. So I do want to clarify something that you mentioned. I haven't had any experience on an actual power plant since I transitioned out. We're more on the building side of things. And so when Kiewit builds things, we do it right the first time. And so part of that process is that quality assurance that me and my team work on together. And so auditing is part of that. And so when I audit, I do internal audits. And so go to the projects and audit their processes that they're following, making sure that they're compliant with the internal procedures that Kiewit has, as well as any external requirements that they may be following. And it's unique project to project because you're building different things.
Well, I mean, if you're on nuclear construction. When was our last nuclear power plant built, Rob? Didn't we say it was one of the Vogtle units or whatever? So
Vogtle's the one I'm aware of in Georgia.
So you're doing the planning stuff right now, and the whole country's doing the planning stuff. So
Right.
So back to something you mentioned earlier, or maybe Megan, you told me, because I had interacted with Kiewit Construction back 10 years ago, and there was word that Kiewit Nuclear was kind of creeping up there. But can you talk about a little bit of the history of your division?
Oh, right. Absolutely. So kind of what you've alluded to, the nuclear market has gone in cycles, and I know that both of you can provide a lot more background on that than I can. But Kiewit Nuclear went through a similar cycle that everybody did around the time that Fukushima happened, because
that's what I wanted you to bring up.
In the American market, the Fukushima disaster increased regulatory scrutiny and operating costs, and so things kind of quelled during that time. But in this nuclear renaissance that the country is experiencing, Kiewit Nuclear has grown, and I'm really excited to be part of that team as we're looking at that future in this country.
Rob, maybe Megan can take your project to Kiewit, which is which is now named what? What is the new name?
Gridway. So Gridway is a product that helps generate licensing documentation and regulatory reports using generative AI, because the reports are difficult to write.
They're so boring to read that people were dying. So Rob created robots to read the licensing agreements.
Yeah, it's exciting, and but what's the challenge with it is, and I'm sure Megan, you're seeing this, is that the level of precision is really matters. Like you can't have hallucinations, which is when an AI makes something up. You can't offer any unsubstantiated claims. Oh, it should be fine to build on the slope because the slope isn't that steep. That wouldn't work. You'd have to describe the grade and everything. Anyway, I'm digressing. But yeah, I'm curious if we could dig into the audit process and self-assessment. So like you mentioned that you're auditing or at least confirming that people are following their own processes, right? So what's an example of that? Obviously without revealing anything proprietary, but what's an example of that, and how does that add up to like a safer construction?
Great. So I'll draw a parallel for the listeners that are familiar with the process from the nuclear Navy, if any of our listeners are in the nuclear Navy. It's that attitude that we take towards doing that internal look and that self-assessment and being open to getting feedback and improving from that. So if you think about, for any of the JOs that are listening, when you did a surveillance on any of the maintenance that was going on in the plant, it could be the most mundane maintenance, but you have the procedure in front of you, you're checking to make sure that whoever's doing the maintenance is doing the process correctly and in accordance with the procedure, having that verbatim compliance. And so taking that attitude towards self-assessment, it's similar and reflected on the civilian nuclear side. When we're auditing, we prepare a checklist, and the checklist is basically lines of inquiry that are based off of those internal processes. And so we go in and interrogate those lines of inquiry and look at the processes. Audits can take up to maybe even 3 weeks, depending on the scale that we want to do. And part of what I really like about the internal audit process is that everybody wants to get better, and that's what separates nuclear, in my mind, from the normal industry or anything separate from nuclear. It's that desire and that hunger to get better and make sure that you're, like I said earlier, building it right the first time and producing a quality product. Does that kind of answer that question, Ron?
Yeah, and it's true about that like attitude of self-improvement and desire to improve it. And I think nuclear is somewhat unique there. Unless you've got, I worked at GE Nuclear, but then after that I worked at a software startup, and the stakes are just not that high. If your software breaks, you just you fix it and you restart the thing, and maybe a phone call gets dropped. But the stakes are obviously way higher in nuclear, and I've seen the same thing in the nuclear industry, just a desire for continuous improvement.
Right. The industry is held to the standards, so we hold ourselves to those standards, and that internal audit process ensures that. And so something interesting that I didn't know when I transitioned out is there's actually a qualification to become a nuclear lead auditor. And so that was one of the things that I was able to do in my time at Kiewit Nuclear. Is my mentors invested in me, my manager invested in me, and they sent me on these audits as a lead auditor in training. And I got to see a bunch of different audits, internal audits, or we also audit suppliers as well. So that's also getting a peek at that side of things as well.
No, that's really cool. Something that when you and I were talking about what we could talk about that you seem pretty interested or passionate about was the nuclear safety culture. And like, to be honest, that is the crux of this nuclear argument. Is it safe? Is it safe for the people that work on it? Is it safe for the people that live near it? And two gray-haired white guys telling you something safe, that don't actually work in the industry. That's you and I, Rob. Is one thing, but somebody that actually works in nuclear that has seen it. Like, can you speak to the nuclear safety culture that you've seen both at Kiewit and both in your time in the Navy?
Right. So when we think about the nuclear safety culture from the Navy side, we think about those set and watch standing principles. or maybe there was a different number of watchstanding principles. I know they've shifted over the years when you guys were in, but
in my day,
governs.
it's like 15 or 20. We had more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We had an abacus that we would use to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So those 7 watchstanding principles, or however many there were when whoever's listening was in, they govern the way that the nuclear Navy does work. And on the civilian side, at Kiewit Nuclear, we embody the traits of a nuclear safety culture. And so this nuclear safety culture is a framework of core values published by INPO in 2012, and they've been adopted by the NRC as well. So these traits of a nuclear safety culture, they provide, the assurance that a nuclear facility can be operated in a safe manner for the public and the environment and the workers. And so we adopt those 10 traits, which are categorized in the individual's commitment to safety, the manager's commitment to safety, and how a robust management system can support these core values. And we cover these on a weekly basis at Kiewit Nuclear. Everybody it provides their own sea stories, for lack of a better term, and they talk about the different pillars to this safety culture, and we embody that. And so, for some examples, you'll see similarities from the nuclear Navy ones, such as questioning attitude and continuous learning, or what we would call level of knowledge on the Navy side. But on the civilian nuclear side, it's that continuous learning. But you also see some different ones, such as leadership accountability, which gets into the leadership specific areas. And so, for example, leadership providing the resources like the equipment, people, and procedures to operate in a nuclear safe environment, or change management. If you're making adjustments to what you're doing, leaders provide that change management to make that change smoother.
What is so I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and there was a big panel on construction. So are you aware of any rules around fatigue, like how long someone can work per day when they're constructing, or does that fall under your purview?
But I can't necessarily speak specifically to that. I do know that is something that we have a safety division, and so our safety division is very much so aligned under that.
I think that career that a lot of people that I work with don't understand in the civilian sector is this whole safety people. I mean, there are in companies like yours, Megan. Amazon has a big safety division. One of my buddies that works for all the underground digging companies, USIC, that does it. He's the chief safety officer. Safety is a career. It's a career path. And it helps if you do have some technical background like the three of us do. So that is, I mean, you could, and going forward, probably, Megan, there'll be, like people that are safety that focus on nuclear, and there'll be nuclear safety people, but then there'll be people that are in the safety side of a big organization that have to answer to the nuclear side, which would be a lot of our people probably. So
safety is at the center of everything that we do at Kiewit, and at Kiewit Nuclear, it's taken to one extra level with the nuclear safety culture, and all of the topics that I just went through are employed day to day, are driven home day to day, are covered day to day, and are, for example, in the morning meetings that happened on the job sites, they cover topics like this. And I know that it's a daily conversation, if not more than daily.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I'd imagine if you're on a job site building, if you have the kind of the same group of people and you work with them for 2, 3, 4 years, they just get better and better in terms of safety awareness and communication and spotting stuff before it happens. And those daily meetings, I mean, my experience in the Navy were super important because that was just something you did.
Yeah, and that kind of something that you just said reminded me of another topic that's nuclear safety relevant. It's an environment for raising concerns is vital, and that leads to a robust safety mentality. And part as leaders, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have an environment for raising concerns so that anybody from management to craft can come forward and say, hey, this doesn't look right, this doesn't smell right, what can we do about it? Can you help me understand, or can we talk about why this doesn't look right? And I've seen that at Kiewit Nuclear, and I'm glad to be a part of a company that has that.
Oh yeah, that's so important. I'll tell you the story. I chuckled while you were answering, and I'll tell you why I chuckled. So in the submarine, we were just drilling, getting ready for one of the exams, and everyone was sleep deprived, and I need like 8 hours, and I'm not like a 5 hour or 6 hour kind of person. And I did raise that issue to my engineer, which is the boss, and you can guess how that went. I didn't really. I suppose I could have done it a little bit more gently, but I got shut down pretty hard. Like, oh, you just want to go home, don't you? You know, like that kind of thing. But the submarine, that aspect of submarine life does not exist in civilian nuclear, of like grinding people to a pulp and then expecting them to perform because you've got much bigger staff. You know, on a submarine, the power level's going up and down, and you're scramming the reactor and all that stuff, and it's constant exercise. But in a civilian plant, you want to keep it running. So anyway, I don't know if you guys have ever done that. Like, hey, Captain, can we sleep more?
I think my engineer literally said, if you need 4 hours before you take watch, sleep. That's what he said. That was his threshold. And like, if it got below 4, and he's right. You can always pretty much get 4, but you can't always get 6. That's for sure.
No, you can't.
No.
Well, I had an XO who said, hey, a shower is worth 2 hours.
Yeah, that sleep substitution. A shave was worth something.
A shave, yeah.
Yeah, no, like seriously, the guys, the one fast attack who actually was right near well, I can't say that, that's classified, but it was doing top secret stuff out one of their JOs was my WEPs, and he was saying when they were on station, like they would count a shave as like an hour, like coffee was obviously worth 2 hours, showering was worth like an hour. So
well, do you remember a Nappuccino? A Nappuccino is you take an espresso, or small, because we don't have espresso, but just a small amount of coffee, and you immediately try to go to sleep, and you could sleep for 15-20 minutes, and then the caffeine hits, and that might be worth 3 to 3.5 hours of sleep.
I never heard it called a Nappuccino though.
You told me that phrase.
Me?
You told me that. Yeah, because we were probably talking about cooking one day, and you're like, oh, Rob, you like to cook. How about Nappuccino? That was a term that you coined.
Hey,
so whenever I tell people about it, I'm like, it's Mike Bradley.
I did bring up a cooking prop here, which I'm going to make Megan see here. Rob, I have a new official favorite condiment. For the longest time, it was sriracha. Like that was kind of like my go-to. Have you had kava harissa by chance?
No.
Are you familiar with kava? Megan, are you familiar with kava? It started
in the restaurant. It's like
It started in DC. The restaurant. It's a Mediterranean style restaurant. It started in like Bethesda area, and then it's grown, and now it's a national brand. But their harissa, it's like our family's go-to hummus in a way. Is it
like a pickle? Is it like a relish?
It's like a paste. It's like the consistency of like hummus, but it's just ground up chili peppers with oil and spices or whatever. But check your Whole Foods, Rob. That's my new.
I think I need Megan there to check just to QA the ingredients on that one before we get too deep into it.
Yeah. Anyways, well, I digress. But well, Megan, any last minutes? Because we've already given us like a lot of your time. Anything that you would like to tell an audience about your views of nuclear power, your career?
Yeah, and I'll add one more on top of whatever you might be thinking about saying. But
Okay.
is this like what kind of JO would do well at Kiewit?
Ooh,
Oh,
that's a good question.
okay. That's a good question. So I'll start with Mike's question. I would just want to say that safety isn't just regulation; it's a mindset. And so at Kiewit, I'm seeing this is where discipline in that area is meeting construction, and that's the approach that we take to the nuclear safety culture. And I think that segues right to your question, Rob. Someone who has that safety mindset, not only at Kiewit, but they could be successful anywhere. Because something that I wanted to give out to the viewers that are listening that are sub JOs that might be thinking about getting out, or any submarine or person who's transitioning careers, be confident in what you bring to the table, because particularly for the submariners, you bring an incredible mindset towards work and an incredible work ethic, and be confident in that. But when you transition into a new company or a new role, not only just with Kiewit, but anywhere that you go, be confident in the abilities that you bring to the table, but don't be afraid to flex, because there are things that are going to be different where you're going to work. Bring your work ethic, bring the tools that the Navy gave you when you're transitioning out, but don't be afraid to flex or approach things differently.
Flex meaning like have some swagger, or flex like be flexible?
Both. But no, in all seriousness, be flexible. Don't necessarily be stuck in your ways. Don't say my way is the best way, and maybe be open to learn. There's going to be different ways that civilian nuclear power is going to operate than the Navy nuclear power. Both programs are excellent, but they might do things differently, and that's something that I learned when I transitioned out, and I had incredible mentors to help me in that.
Cool.
That's awesome.
It's great getting to know you, Megan, and hear about what you're doing there, and learning about this great company, because there's going to be a lot to build, and
absolutely.
We want it to be safe, and we want people to, when they hear that a reactor is going up in their city or county, that it's just going to be all good things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing me on and being able to speak as a veteran who's able to contribute to this specific industry, but American industry at large. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit on Kiewit and Kiewit Nuclear, and our do it right the first time mentality.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.